Hey Carnegie family, my name is DeeDee Cummings. I'm a children's book author, which means that I write stories for kids, which I love to do. I was telling Erica, one of the staff members at Carnegie, that I love writing for kids because kids still believe that anything is possible. And anything really is possible, but sometimes when you grow up and you start working a job every day and you have a family, sometimes you fall in a little bit of a rut and you do the same things every day, and so you forget that anything really is possible because you're busy with your everyday life. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, so I'm not real far from the Carnegie Center. Some of you guys might be in Lexington, some of you might be from other places, but I'm real close to the Carnegie Center. As far as driving distance, Louisville's not that far away. I'm from Kentucky, like a lot of you all are. I love to write. I have 3 children who also like to write and read and are in school and talented. Their names are Kayla, Anthony, and Nick. And we also live with my husband Anthony here in Louisville. I want to talk to you a little bit today about how I became a children's book writer, the things that inspire me, what I write about, and how I find ideas for my stories. Some of the stories I've already written we'll talk about, and we'll also talk about some of the projects that I have coming up next, which are pretty exciting. And then finish it off with talking about tips for you guys. If any of you all want to become writers, we'll talk about some things you can do now in order to get there, if that's a goal or a dream you have. A little bit about how I started writing. I started off my career a long time ago as a child protective service worker, which is like a social worker. It was the hardest job I ever had. It was a very tough job, but I'm very glad that I did it because it taught me a lot about life. It taught me patience, and it taught me not to be so judgmental about circumstances or the lives that some people live, the circumstances they find themselves in. It made me realize that there are lots of ways that people end up in situations or end up making mistakes or just end up needing help even when they haven't made a mistake. So I'm very grateful for that perspective, that insight, that vision that I was able to gain through that job. But also through that job, I had to go to court a lot. And so when I would go to court, I would see attorneys there, and I was very interested in the work that they did. I found it very exciting and even fascinating, just like TV shows that you see that, they have that twist at the end of the whodunit and the mystery. So I was really interested in that, and I started going to law school. So I am an attorney as well as an author, and I'm also a therapist because by the time I got through with law school, I wanted nothing to do with court, which some people find really funny, but a lot of lawyers will understand what I'm talking about. So I finished law school, and by the time I was done, I just didn't want to be in the courtroom. I didn't want to, fight with people. I wanted to still help families and solve problems, but do it from a different angle. And a lot of times lawyers do have to fight, not all the time, but a lot of time. And it's not always a bad thing because you should fight for what you believe is right. You should stand up for what you believe is right. But I just didn't want to spend my life that way. So I then went on to become a therapist, and this is how I fell in love with writing because I was working with a lot of kids in foster care as a therapist, and hearing their stories about the things that they had been through made me really sad. And some of the kids I work with were really tired of talking because they had talked to so many people about the experiences they had. And so let me explain real quickly what foster care is for those of you who may not know. Foster care is a home that you go to stay with people who offer help. They offer to help raise you when you can't live with a family member. So you can't live with your mom, you can't live with your dad, or an aunt, or an uncle, or a grandparent. And there's lots of reasons why this happens. Some kids stay in foster care. Some stay for a couple days until a family member can be found. Some stay for years. And for those that stay years in foster care, sometimes they get moved around a lot. So they don't trust people because the people who said that, they were going to take care of them haven't been able to for some reason or another. And it's not always foster parents. Sometimes it's other people that are in the system too. And so these children sometimes have to move, and so they don't trust people very much. When I worked with foster care kids, we started using art and also writing as a way to tell their story, because it was a way that they could get out the problems that they needed to talk about. You know how sometimes the adults in your life will tell you if you're feeling sad or bad that you really need to talk about it. You shouldn't hold it in. You should really tell someone what's going on with you. Well, these kids were tired of telling people what was going on with them. So we would use art and writing as a way to still get those problems out, but they didn't have to worry about some adult telling them why they shouldn't feel that way, or why their feelings were wrong, or trying to, not really understand where they were coming from. And when these kids had the ability to write their story and write about what they had been through, it was very empowering for them, meaning that it gave them a strength that they did not know that they had when they were able to write their story and they got to say who they are and what happened to them, instead of someone else saying, you're not this, you'll never be that. Other people sometimes would tell these kids what they were or what they were going to be. And when you write your own story, you get to decide. You get to say, nope, I'm going to be this. These are my dreams and my plans, and no one can take that away from you. That's your story on your paper. You also can write a pretend ending of how you believe that things are going to end up. And you have the power there to say how your story is going to end. So writing your own story, even when you're not in foster care, can be a really powerful and strong thing to do. It can really help your mind when you might worry about things, to put things down on paper, put your story down on paper to help you figure out what is going on and write about what's happening in your life. So especially if there are any children out there who are really struggling with being able to talk to people, try writing instead of talking about it. Try writing a letter or writing a story about what it's like to be you and what you're going through. And you may find that it's also very powerful for you as well. So when I started working with these kids and I saw how the stories were working for them, I thought, well, that could probably work for me, because I was sad also. Not to say that, my life was nothing compared to what they were going through, but when you do hear sad stories all the time, it can also make you sad. So I started writing my stories too, and it was very uplifting. It was very powerful to write these stories about life and about hope. And so I spend a lot of my time writing about kindness and empathy and hope, which you can talk with your parents about these things, or your adults at home about these things, but they'll tell you that our world is in need of more empathy and more kindness and more hope. So I hope when you write your story, it empowers you to have better feelings about your experience and also about the world around you. Writing really helped me with sad feelings. The first book I ever wrote was called Love Is, and it is only 73 words long. A lot of people are really surprised when I tell them that, but it's just a poem about the power of love and about how important it is to take care of love, not to take it for granted, because love is there for all of us, we are all entitled. We all have the right to be loved. We all want to be loved. And it's a powerful thing, but we also have to take care of it. We can't just expect that the people who love us will always be there. So we have to tell people we love them too, and we have to be grateful and we have to be thankful. We have to tell people, thank you for making us dinner. Thank you for tucking me in bed at night. Thank you for making sure I had a nice warm bath before I went to bed. So show gratitude and kindness and be grateful. And so that's what my first book ever was about. The great thing about that book was I really wanted to write a book, but I was a little nervous about it. So writing this quick, short poem that ended up being beautifully illustrated, which I don't illustrate my own books. I cannot draw a straight line. That's a number one question I get when I go see kids in schools. They always want to know, did I draw these pictures? No, I did not. I cannot draw at all. I can barely draw stick people. But yes, putting that poem into a book and then having it beautifully illustrated showed me that I really could write a book because I could hold it in my hands, then it was real. So I went on to write 14 more books after that. I now have 15 books out, all for kids. One day I might write a story for adults. I have a lot of stories in my head that I want to tell, but I don't sit still a whole lot. I work a lot and I write a lot, and I have a lot of kids' books lined up that I really want to work on that are important to me. So maybe one day we'll get to a book for adults. But right now I write for kids, and I have 15 books out right now, which I just can't even believe. I'm really excited about that. It was kind of like I caught a writing bug. I don't know if you all know what that means, but I got bitten by the bug. You ever heard somebody say they got bitten by the love bug? Well, I got bitten by the writing bug. And when I got bitten by the writing bug, I couldn't stop writing. That's what the writing bug did to me. I just couldn't stop writing. So my inspiration for all of these books come from lots of different places. I have written several books, some of which I brought today to show you quickly. One is called My Dad's Job, which is a popular Father's Day gift. It's about the power of role modeling and the importance of an adult in your life being consistent and showing up every day. It's a really beautiful story about how simple everyday acts make huge, meaningful changes and a big difference in your life. This is another book I wrote. I really like this book because it's kind of therapeutic. It has a lot of coping skills in it. So you might not know what coping skills are, but I know you've heard of them, because sometimes if you get upset and a parent or a teacher says to you, count to 10, or breathe deeply, or, just sit down for a minute and think before you get up. Even taking a time out, that's kind of a punishment, but it's also a coping skill, because the whole point of taking a time out is to give yourself time to think about how you can make a better choice. And it doesn't matter if you're 8 or 88. For the rest of your life, you'll have to work on taking time to think about making better choices. I like this book too because it rhymes. Not all of my books rhymes. As you know, not all children's books rhyme. But it's a really cute, it's got 3 little cute stories in it about people who thought something was the end of the world, and it turned out to be even better than it was before. So really cute story about the power of thinking positively and looking at a situation and saying, you know what, maybe it was supposed to happen this way. How can I take steps to make that situation better? A lot of times another question I get a lot is, which book out of all these books is your favorite? And I always tell people, picking your favorite book is kind of like someone asking you, I have 3 kids, and someone asking me which one is my favorite kid. I don't have a favorite kid. I love them all the same, but I love different things about each one of them. And so my books are kind of like that too. But I do have to say I have a special spot for this book. It's a holiday book about Christmas. It's called In the Nick of Time, and my youngest son, his name is Nick. So this is not really his life, but this person kind of reminds me of my son Nick, and definitely his little spirit. His fiery spirit in the book reminds me of my son Nick. But my family loves Christmas. We love the holidays, and we collect Christmas stories to read every year during the holidays. And one year, we collect all kinds of Christmas stories. We don't just collect Christmas stories with characters who look like us, but one year we had all of the books with characters who look like us, all of them. Can you believe that? I mean, there's literally hundreds, maybe thousands of Christmas books, and we had all of the Christmas books that we could find with brown or black characters in the book. So I wanted to write, one of my favorite storylines about Christmas is a little kid who gets to help Santa Claus save the day. So I wanted to write a story about a little brown boy who got to help Santa save the day. And this is one of my favorite pictures in the book. That's why I'm holding it up. I don't know, I just love those trees and snow. And this is Nick trying to chase down the mailman because the mailman delivered the wrong letter to their house. But in this book, in the nick of time, the young boy Nick in the story gets to help Santa Claus save the day. I have this poster behind me, which is about this book, This is the Earth. What this book is about is one day I was just sitting at the end of my bed and I was catching the top stories on the news, and I just felt kind of like this overwhelming feeling because there's a lot going on in our community right now, and a lot of people not getting along, and just a lot of conflict, which again means that people aren't agreeing, people aren't getting along, and people aren't always being nice to each other. So I just felt this feeling of like, how are we going to overcome these problems? How are we going to work together? And why can't we see that we have so much more in common as people than we do that's not in common? We have so much more in common, because we're all human beings. All of us, we're all human beings, no matter what skin color you are, we're all human beings. We all need to breathe. We all, across the whole world, when something's funny, we all laugh. We might not laugh the same way, but we all laugh. When something makes us sad, we all have water that comes from our eyes. We all tear up and we all cry when we're sad. There's just so much more about us that is in common than what makes us different. And so I was trying to think of a simple way to explain to children the importance of us getting along and the importance of us giving each other a little grace, meaning that we take our time with each other, that we try to be more understanding of each other, that we not just say my way is right and you are wrong, but that we actually try to listen first and then see where we can meet on a problem. Instead of just saying, I win, you lose. How can we talk about something so that we both can win? Because we're both human beings. So this book is called This is the Earth. And I really like this book too because I really like the cover. And a lot of people think it's an environmental book, maybe a book about taking care of the earth and recycling and things like that. And it's not an environmental book, but coincidentally, if we take better care of each other, guess what? We will take better care of the earth. And so this is a book about the earth being our home and how everybody on this planet is your brother or your sister, your neighbor. There's not a stranger on the planet. And I don't mean that you can go out on the street and talk to a stranger. You shouldn't go up to strangers and talk to them. But we are all human beings, and you got to remember that. So even though it might not be safe to go up and talk to everybody, everybody still deserves respect. And so that's what this book is about. And this book is just filled with just beautiful illustrations of children all over the world. This is just one of my favorite books because the illustrations are so beautiful, and the messages in the illustrations are very powerful. Like, for example, this message. This is a little seagull that's at the beach, and he's got a 6-pack, like from a soda pack, a 6-pack soda can or pop can rings around his neck. And so this this person might say, we can't drink 6 packs anymore because we're harming the birds and the turtles. And this person might say, well, I'm not going to give up my 6 packs. That's not the answer. I'm not going to stop drinking my 6 packs. I have the right to drink my sodas when I get home every night. So if we meet in the middle, which there is middle ground, what might a possible solution be? One solution could just be, before you throw this in the garbage, cut it up so that it doesn't end up with the ability to be stuck around a bird or a turtle's neck. And then you can still have your sodas. You know, nobody wants to take your sodas away. We just want it to not have a harmful impact on some of the other neighbors that we share the earth with. The book today that I hope you all already have, or I hope that it's on your way, this is actually book number 11. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, that's right. This is book number 11. And then there's 5 books in this series. And so that's what took me to 15 books this year, 15 books published this year. So there are 5 books in this series. And this book is a really adorable book because it's inspired by the life of my oldest daughter, Kayla, who is an actress who lives in New York. And she went to school right here in Louisville, Kentucky. All my children go to school in Louisville, Kentucky, and I also came up in school in public schools in Louisville, Kentucky. So just think about that when you think that only authors and actors and people like that come from like California or Atlanta or Miami. An actress came from Louisville, Kentucky, and an author came from Louisville, Kentucky, and you can do whatever you want to do from Kentucky also. So remember that. But this book is loosely inspired by her life because she was just this little, rocking little girl who just, she had goals and dreams from the beginning and she never let anything get in her way. And I wanted to share that positive energy with other people who also might need an inspiring story like that, to know that you just have to have a dream and a plan and you can reach your goal. So I'll take a moment to read this story to you. It's an adorable story. I know I wrote it, but it is really a sweet story. And one more thing I like about this story is one of my friends told me that her granddaughter she asked her granddaughter, do you want me to read you a bedtime story? And her granddaughter said, no, bedtime stories are just filled with, they're horrible stories and they give you nightmares, because bedtime stories are sometimes like, Jack and the Beanstalk and things like that, there are these lessons where maybe someone gets hurt. So this is a sweet bedtime story. It won't give you nightmares, and it'll take you to sleep at night with lots of hope and hopefully positive dreams. So I want to read this book to you right now because it's a really adorable story. If you have your book, go ahead and get it out so you can read along with me, or when you get your book, really take some time to look at the special pictures that the illustrator of this book, her name is Charlene Mosley, helped me create a beautiful story. So I put the words in and she puts the pictures in, and together it just makes a beautiful story. This is Kayla, a modern day princess. Kayla is a gift. She is just like you. She is happy and she has hopes and dreams. Every day her mom wakes her up and says, what's your plan today? Every day you have to have a plan. A plan gives you hope, and hope gives you dreams. So what's your plan today? Most of the time, Kayla only sees her mom in the mornings. Her mom works very late. By the time her mom gets home, it is usually way past Kayla's bedtime. Tonight, however, her dad said she could wait up for her mom. Her mom called home earlier in the day and said that she had big news to share. Even though it was nowhere near Kayla's birthday, she hoped it had something to do with her getting a present. Just as she was dreaming of all the toys she wanted, Kayla heard the garage door open. She ran to the window and screamed, hello, Mr. Moon. My mama is home. Kayla wanted to race downstairs. She could not help but kick her feet up and down in excitement. She walked to her doorway and put her ear close to the door. She could hear her mom coming up the stairs. Like a lightning bolt, she went from the door back to her bed in a second. Kayla's mom beamed with pride as she opened the door. Her mom gave her a big hug and said, "How is my sweet little princess in her tower?" Kayla said, "I'm good, Mama. Do you have a present for me?" "No, I did not say I had a present. I said I had big news." "What's the big news?" Kayla wondered out loud. "I got a promotion." "Mom, that's wonderful. It's what we worked so hard for." "Yes, I have worked hard for it. We all have, really. And I got a present for you." Kayla says, "Yes, yes, yes, I knew it." Kayla clapped her hands in excitement. From her work bag, Kayla's mom pulled out a sparkly tiara fit for a princess. "What is this for, Mom?" "This is for you. I want you to wear it proudly. Always believe and know how special you are. People will be mean to you sometimes, and they will try to tell you differently. Don't you pay them any mind. Do you hear me? I want you to always be treated special, like royalty, because that is what you are." She then placed the little crown on top of Kayla's head. It fit perfectly. "Now I have a secret to share with you, little one." Kayla's eyes opened wide with anticipation. "The best promotion I ever received was the day I became your mom." Mom and daughter looked at each other. In Kayla's eyes, her mom saw all of the hopes and dreams she ever had. A journey that in this moment made all the hard work worth it. In her mom's eyes, Kayla saw her hopes and dreams for her future. A role model to follow. No matter how big or scary her dreams would be, Kayla would find a way. She would make a way. Kayla went to sleep with her little tiara on her head and her favorite doll in her arms. She dreamed of her future, her wishes, and her hopes. Kayla thought, this world is a beautiful and magical place. That night, Kayla dreamed of what her life could be. She promised herself she would see as much of the world as she possibly could. She knew she had to have a plan. The world would be her stage. She was happy as she slept because she was hopeful. Sweet dreams, little one. Sweet dreams. So that's just a really sweet story, and it's the start of this whole series of how Kayla then goes on to follow that dream. It's an adorable story. I have a sneak preview for you of book 4 that I just got. This is how the cover of book 4 looks, and I just love it. I love everything about it. Charlene Mosley is just so talented. Believe it or not, I've never even met Charlene in person, and we worked together now for like 3 years. She lives in California, and she's very, very, very talented, very high in demand as an illustrator. So I'm very fortunate to get just a little piece of her time, and I just love how she's made this dance skirt for Kayla, also known as a tutu, with her beautiful shoes and the butterflies that come together to help give her the power she needs to fly as a dancer. Just a really neat story, and I'm proud to show you how our covers are progressing. So we're on book 4 now. Book 5 is done and at the printer, but we don't actually have a copy of that one yet. So it's been a really exciting experience. I specialize in writing diverse books for kids, which means that I write stories that include characters that you don't always see in books. So you don't see a lot of black and brown characters in books. You don't see a lot of characters who might have to use wheelchairs in books, and I try to always incorporate characters who deserve to have their stories told and deserve to be seen in books. I always tell people that seeing yourself in a book builds your esteem, and seeing other people in a book builds your empathy, which basically that means if I see somebody who looks like me in a book, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like somebody sees me, somebody hears me, somebody knows I'm there and wants to hear a little bit of what my life is like. If I see someone else in a story who doesn't look like me, then it helps build my empathy. It helps give me an understanding of what their life is like, which I may never even get a chance to see if I didn't read a book about their experience. I may never even know what it's like to be them on this planet if I didn't read a book about their life. So I am a Black author, and I do write stories a lot with Black characters. But I don't only write about Black characters, and I don't write about Black characters just for Black kids. I write about Black characters because all kids need to hear these stories so that we can better relate to one another. So, my upcoming projects are I'm going to do a middle grade series about the Kayla story, and I'm hoping to really build an audience for the Kayla story. So if you want to help me spread the word, that would be great. We've got something special coming out of Kentucky, and I'd love for as many people to know about it as possible. But after the middle grade series, I'm going to do something crazy. But, somebody said, I didn't say it, but I do quote it a lot. If your dreams don't scare you, then they're not big enough. So I have this huge dream of turning this Kayla series into a musical production, a script, a Broadway show. So we'll see. That is a huge dream, but I would love for you to follow along and cheer me on as we try to make this come to life. Tips for you all as young authors, but I also want to talk to people who are not so young authors. I'm a lot older than I probably look. I'll just tell you, my daughter Kayla's 28, so that'll tell you something right there. And my first book wasn't even published until about 5 years ago, and in 5 years I've written 15 books. And in 2020, I didn't put out a single book. It was so 2020, right? So, that'll kind of tell you I did get started as an author a little bit later in life, but the thing that I want everybody to remember, no matter how young or old you are, is every single person on this planet has a story to tell. Your story is important. Your story matters. Your story means something. You have a story to share. You are here for a reason. Never forget that. Your life is magical. Even if you don't feel magical, even if you don't feel special, your life is magical, and you have a story to share. So my number one tip, the most important thing you can do if you want to write, is read more. Read every day if you can. Carry a book with you. We're going to have a great summer because the pandemic is not as bad as it once was, and we might get out and do more, but always carry a book with you. So if you have downtime, like if you're at a baseball game and you're waiting for the game to start, you can read your book. You can go anywhere you want to as long as you have a book on you. So it's very important that you read more if you want to write well, because reading shows you how to write and teaches you all kinds of things about how books are structured and how stories are told, which is important. The other thing I would say is when you are out going to these baseball games or traveling with your family or whatever you're doing, you could just be taking a ride to the grocery store. Carry a little notebook with you so that if something happens, something hilarious like your brother trips and drops his ice cream, you can write down why that was so funny and what exactly happened and what people said. That's like real language, and real language is like gold in a book, meaning that people know a book is good when they believe that it's real. And it doesn't have to be a real story, like a nonfiction story. Fiction is a made-up story. Nonfiction is a story that was real life. It doesn't have to be a real story, but people will feel like the story is believable, and that's what I mean by real language. So carry a notebook with you and try to write down not just what happened, but all the senses, what did you smell? What did you see? What did you hear? What was said? What were people saying? Were people clapping? Were people crying? Write down all the senses. What did you feel? Did you help pick up the cold ice cream and put it back on the cone? Or, write all about all of those details. And that also will help you be a better writer. So when you tell your story, you have those details to share, and it'll make a reader like me feel like I was actually there. I really appreciate you inviting me today. I know I talked a little longer than I was supposed to, but I hope you enjoyed this talk. And if you have any questions for me at all, I love questions, and I will promise to write you back. You can contact me through my website. I have two websites actually, DeeDeeCummings.com or makeawaymedia.com. And you can click on, I believe one of the websites says Let's Chat and one says Contact Us. But if you send me a message through those links, I will be glad to answer any questions that you have or help you in any way that I can. So the writing community is really a cool community. It's a warm community, and I've learned a lot about what I do from people who are out there doing it, who I ask questions of also. So don't be afraid to reach out if you have any questions or comments at all. And you can also follow us on social media at author DeeDee Cummings on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, or at Makeaway Media. You can see a lot about my story and the work that we do. We do a lot of good work through Makeaway Media on those social media sites as well. Thank you so much for inviting me into your homes and into the Carnegie Center and into your lives today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you so much. Have a great night.